friends, family, my fellow cinephiles, and welcome to another episode of Straight Racer Top 10, where we tell you our top 10 favorite things about movies.
More often than not, we see films solely for the actors. I mean, why wouldn't we praise them? They're the ones in front of the camera pouring out their heart and soul for the whole world to see, right? Well, what if I told you that behind the camera were a group of men and women who are also pouring out their heart and soul for the whole world to see?
Hey, fuck you. Well, anyway, believe it or not, it takes more than actors to make a movie, and one of these people behind the camera is the director. And sure, in the modern era, we've had a couple directors make auteur status, such as Quentin Tarantino and Tim Burton. You know, those kind of directors that are associated with literally every single film they've ever made. But cases like that are so fucking rare. So, I thought we would give these little guys kind of a little bit of a spotlight. You know, I just kind of realized how silly that was, considering that the director I picked for my list is not only my favorite, or the most auteuristic director that you probably could go with, he's also not particularly little either. Well, here's my top 10 Alfred Hitchcock films, everyone.
For his second talkie film, Hitch went with a story of an impoverished family consisting of a hardworking mother, a lazy husband, and their kids. This is an interesting film compared with Hitchcock's other work, and in my opinion, it's not something he ever really explored again later in his career, which I think makes the film that much more special. This is Hitch's first ever talkie, though it was still early in the lifespan of sound and film. There are still moments where it feels like a silent film, but that really works in its favor. I mean, check out this scene early from the film, as the man slowly reaches for the gun while the police stand in the doorway across the room, really fills the scene with suspense. The first real Hitchcock thriller, this film from the silent era was ahead of its time. The suspense of this particular film draws from the mystique of the title character. There's a serial killer running around offing young women, and all the evidence points to a mysterious lodger who is all sorts of sketch. For example, he matches the description given earlier in the film, and he disappears randomly in the middle of the night. Did he do it? Guess you'll have to watch the film and find out for yourself. Not only was this a different kind of film for Hitch, it was a different kind of film in general. And the best part about this film is all of these people coming across this dead body and all having different reactions. The better portion of the film's runtime is spent trying to figure out what should be done with Harry. Harry's troubles might have been over, but he created a few more for these characters and a few laughs for the audience. For this entry, I'm talking about the 1934 original. That's right, this film has a remake, and what's better, this film and its remake were both directed by Alfred Hitchcock. How many directors can you think of that decided to remake their own film? Both films are great, and the remake stars Jimmy Stewart, one of my all-time favorite actors, but in my opinion, the original is the superior film. Unfortunately, the less I tell you about this one, the more enjoyable it is. Just know that it's about a girl being sent to live with her aunt and uncle, but ends up in the clutches of a ruthless gang of bandits in the infamous Jamaica Inn. I could say more, but just take my word for it, the less I say, the more you'll like it. Man, 1955 was a good year for Hitch. This is the best one with Cary Grant in it, and that might kill my girlfriend, seeing as how the first Hitchcock film I introduced her to was North by Northwest, another film starring Grant. Though North by Northwest would make most people's list, I find the whole cat and mouse routine amongst Grant, the police chasing Grant, and the burglar framing Grant better and more entertaining than the whole espionage thing they had going in the other film. Most of Hitch's films were all about government espionage, and it was somewhat refreshing to see the misidentity trope seen in a different scenario, this time being a cat burglar rather than a spy. One of the forerunners to the slasher genre, Janet Leigh steals money from her employer and decides to skip town, stopping at a motel where she meets the young Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins. Though I don't want to spoil too much, I have to mention the infamous shower scene. There, I mentioned it. This one is fun. Jimmy Stewart plays a photographer with a broken leg. To combat boredom, he starts watching his neighbors from a window. In the process, he starts to think that one of his neighbors has murdered his wife. In his journey to prove his theory, he enlists the help of his girlfriend, played by Grace Kelly. The most interesting thing about this film is that it all takes place in Stewart's apartment. Through the entirety of the film, the camera never leaves the room. If it hasn't become obvious, I'm a huge fan of the films that Jimmy Stewart did with Hitchcock, and number one is no exception. Rope is different from your run-in-the-mill film. With this movie, Hitchcock wanted to make a film that was one continuous shot. The only problem was that the camera could only hold 10 minutes of film at a time, so cuts had to be made. But with the use of blocking and certain camera movements, it's hardly noticeable. The acting is superb. I'm particularly a fan of Sir Cedric Hardwicke's role as David's dad. He's the only person other than Jimmy Stewart that realizes something isn't right when David doesn't show up to the party. This movie, like pretty much all of Hitch's classics, will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end.
And there you have it. What'd you think? Does your list look similar? Maybe I mentioned some you actually never heard of. Comment down below and we'll start a conversation. But until next time, Avengers Assemble, may the Force be with you, and it's time to kick ass and chew bubblegum. Take it easy, guys.